Hey guys, yesterday did not go as expected. Kinda had a rough day, and I almost regret. Well, actually, I don't usually regret. I almost regret not recording a video yesterday. I think it would have been valuable to be able to observe in that moment how I felt, what the things were that were bugging me, and then so we could see afterwards together how my perceptions are sometimes warped or differently weighted at different moments in time. Maybe debug why that is, how it changes. Yeah, I did have a feeling that, or a desire, I felt some level of impulse to record a video in the morning yesterday. Then I kind of overthought it and ended up not doing it. On the bright side, I'm doing it now. It's 7 or so in the morning, the day after. I often feel some level of relief in the morning, where the previous day, sometimes the whole day, sometimes some portion of the day, definitely in the evening, where I will have been feeling not so great, just weighed down by different things at different times. At the moment, it's often about my financial situation and how much money I'm able to earn. Something I sometimes struggle with these days. So after having felt a somewhat heavy burden the day before, I will wake up and feel that most of the weight has been lifted, or let's say maybe it's still present somewhere, but it's not affecting me as much right now. I'm like in a head space, emotional space, where I'm just gently detached from those concerns. And then what I like to do is use that space that has been created, so to speak, where I can now move more freely in thought and emotion. So in my vibration to places that feel better, that places that I can choose, and I can choose them based on how good they feel. So then I lay there and I make use of that space. So it's not dreaming, and it's doesn't have to be very visual or something, but I can just kind of move around, feel. Yeah, I don't know if I can describe it more closely. It does have something to do with imagination, or it's kind of, in some ways, an extension of the dream state, I would say. So I can just play around with that a little bit, and I do. And it's very good. It's very helpful. And I sometimes keep that going for even a few hours or so, where I just play around with that space, and I'm you could say maybe trying all kinds of perspectives, or thinking on purpose all kinds of good feeling thoughts. And yeah, it's not all me just, let's say, fabricating thoughts, like thinking up affirmations or something like that, but it's also the thoughts showing up, and if I like them, I'll focus on them. I'll feel how they feel. And if I don't like a particular thought, I just breathe and return back to this somewhat detached place. And then that thought I didn't like so much just gently floats away, and I can pick another one, make space for another one, and my general good feeling is going to attract another one. It's going to attract one that matches how I feel more closely. And in this state, it seems like it becomes more possible to feel some good feeling emotions that simply were not possible for me to feel the day before. Like, for example, today I felt control. I felt being powerful in terms of controlling, or, strongly influencing my financial results, which I was simply not able to feel yesterday. That, feel the possibility of that even, right? It did not even occur to me that I have even some significant level of control over my situation, over my results. I felt, yeah, I guess powerless yesterday. And even though I don't necessarily, magically feel very powerful right now, at least it's like there's space now in the same place where yesterday there was powerlessness. So an actively negative impression, a negative self observation. Today there is space, there is room, there is at the very least nothing in its place. So just neutral vibration. And I am able to invite something positive, and mostly because of my my gentle and detached state, where, yeah, kind of gently allow any bothering, any negative thoughts to just flow away. I don't have to choose them. I don't have to hold on to any of them. They kind of feel less real, or less, yeah, like they have less reality. Maybe because I've just emerged back, let's say, into this physical reality from the dream state, from the dream reality, from probably, in terms of, from the perspective of my physical consciousness having hung around other spheres and planes and existences. And now I don't feel so I don't feel a need to accept all of these negative thoughts so much. I feel less like they must belong to me and I must pick them up. So I thought, like, hey, maybe I can do something about my situation. Hey, maybe I have some level of control over it. Maybe it's like with everything else, it's kind of, what do you say? It's in my own hands. I can take it into my own hands. it's very interesting to observe myself in this gently detached state, and sometimes I try to, or oftentimes I try to stay in it for as long as possible, because for some reason at some point my quote unquote normal self observation mode kicks in and takes over, and it's gradually trying to do that all the time, basically, after waking up. And now I can feel it a lot more strongly than before, and it feels like the more I start observing my actual specific surroundings, the more I subscribe to listening to my normal thoughts again, because it's like I'm between worlds right now, between perceptions of a completely free and unburdened and pristine state of my consciousness, which is the one that's active, or it's kind of inactive, in the sense that it doesn't have any of the things active that I normally do during my day. At least none of them. Definitely none of the negative things, but also very little. It has little in common in terms of the day-to-day active stuff, active thoughts and vibrations. It's like it's reset to factory defaults, we could say. I'm in between perceptions, between that pristine consciousness and who I was the day before. And this seems like a really good opportunity to actively reset some of the perceptions, some of the activity in my yesterday's day-to-day persona. And actually I'm noticing that if I just withdraw, if I kind of refuse to think about, if I just do not put my focus on my yesterday's day-to-day personas, active thoughts and vibrations, then to some degree I move closer to that pristine state. It's kind of, I can decide to put on, it's like putting on a glove, it feels like right now. And the gloves are personalities, or let's say perspectives that are somewhat homogeneous. Is that the right word? Like, have a coherent structure, have coherent contents, in a sense, have a structure and a form that is already well known, that is entrained, that is practiced, that is basically comfortable or is fitting in a sense, and like as you say, it fits like a glove. It's something I know very well. It's something that's active so often and so much that first of all I know it, and it becomes something I can wear. But it's just a personality construct. It's just a mode of perception. And it usually feels quite solid, and we're like putting on this glove right after waking up, normally without even noticing very much. And this in between perception that I had this morning, and I'm still experiencing, is something that we all have every day, and actually every moment we can, let's say, dissolve this very solid seeming perception of this day-to-day personality that fits us like a glove, that we fashioned by living it, by choosing it, operating from within it. It becomes more complete, more solid, more tightly woven, if you will, depending on what you do with it. But that's something that oftentimes happens if you keep running the same energies, keep focusing in your attention in similar ways. It's like your attention is weaving something, and you're not even aware that you are weaving something for yourself that, and that this is something that you choose and you put on and you expand and extend and you keep working on. But the opportunity to withdraw from that glove, to move back out of that, to take that off and observe it and make fresh choices, and to just be without this kind of cover, without this kind of, I don't know, fashion item. You don't exists in every moment. And the mornings are great for that because the night provides basically a mandatory reset, if you will, of perception, of how we perceive ourselves. We go to a place that is free of that, of any of these gloves that we make for ourselves. And this is a very good place to be, in between, or in this pristine, in this perception of your pristine self and of my pristine self right now. It feels like possibility. It feels like I can I can fashion any perspective that I might fancy. I can go anywhere I want with my perception. I can fashion a new glove that fits differently, that serves different purposes, that has very different attributes and qualities from the one I had chosen to wear yesterday. And it's like, yeah, I can choose the materials that I would like to use to fashion this item. And the base materials are things like love, if we want to be extreme, we could say love versus hate and everything in between, right? The basic emotions that we have available in our full range of human emotions. So I could weave in a little frustration if I wanted to, or hopefulness, or excitement, or satisfaction. Many people choose to use fear as one of their base materials. That makes for gloves that can be quite uncomfortable to wear in many situations that might occur during many of our moments. But it's us making the choice of which material we want to use. For any given aspect of these gloves, these personalities that we perceive ourselves into. And it seems like there is a certain vibration that allows for we could say this transmutation of consciousness, or transmutation of states of consciousness, where there is the perception of this freedom of moving in and out of these gloves of personalities, so to speak. I don't know if it serves me to keep working with this metaphor. Maybe it's because it's too limiting. It's becoming limiting. There's a certain amount of space that needs to be there, like the perception that, oh yeah, I have control over that. Oh yeah, I am doing that. The more I feel like I have to force that, I have to somehow accomplish something, the moment I try, the moment I start trying, the moment I put in this kind of resistance, that's when I seem to lose this space, lose this capability to resist the compulsion to already put on this glove and because there seems to be a strong pull there, or it's like a gravity, that it's a place that I'm used to perceiving from, I'm used to living from, and so it has some level of momentum and gravity. It's just the level of inertia that's, we could say, programmed into this world. And I'm wondering if any of the people hearing this will think that I'm a complete nut for perceiving the world as I do. All of these things that I'm saying here, basically, so what I do is trying to perceive, and I think all of us perceive various energies, and this is just using this word for lack of a better term, because for the idea that, or the very practical reality that there are so many things inside of ourselves that we can feel, that we can control. It's like, I don't know, we could say maybe it's muscles, like thousands of them, that we can exercise, and we receive feedback, and it's very subtle. It's not as in your face as, I don't know, when reality slaps you across the face in the millions of ways that it does. Like, reality has the potential to, let's say, override. So these external impressions, external observations have the potential to override any of these internal perceptions. Internal, like, it's for us it's so much easier to feel our actual muscles that move our hand, for example, that move our fingers, right? This is super, I mean, this is amazingly haptic and real, such a real, in your face, very, I mean, it's an awesome experience, but it's also strong. Like the perceptions are really strong, and so it's also really easy to get hung up on everything that's happening outside ourselves. And but then within ourselves, there's this rich world of, things, whatever they are. We don't even have proper names for all of them, just for some of them. Like, I mean, we have vocabulary for classifying emotions and to some degree their intensities and some of the nuances. But there's more. There are buttons and levers, and it's like a musical instrument, maybe, where you have, where you have so many different ways of playing it, so many notes you could be playing at once, and how they harmonize, and the melodies you can play, and there's very precise musical notation for capturing these and communicating about all of these notes and the chords and the progressions, right? There's a lot of language people have, and tools people have invented to be able to discuss these things, to be able to also to aid in learning these things. And I feel like for all of the stuff that's going on inside ourselves, inside our personalities, inside of our consciousnesses, we don't have quite the vocabulary and the, even, I think, maybe as a collective we lack the observation. Like, growing up as a child, nobody ever talked to me about all of the stuff that's happening inside of my consciousness, inside of my personality. I mean, in my family, we did not even talk about emotions very much, or actually, I mean, basically not at all. Nobody in school ever talked about, that even the idea that you could choose which thoughts you put more or less weight on, which, and how it works to, receive ideas or new thoughts or new perspective, how to move places inside yourself. No one ever talked about any of that. So I'm pretty sure, even though there are some people in groups making some efforts to catalog these things and invent words and concepts and all of that, just collectively we have too little awareness and too little of a handle on all the things that are actually going on inside of ourselves. And so that's part of what I am attempting to do, because the more I focus on what's going on inside of myself, I find that the more I see the richness that is there, the various places that exist inside myself, the buttons and levers and mechanisms that determine what I think, how I feel, how I act, which of these, like where my what I'm even capable, or in the close, which thoughts, emotions, and actions I'm even close enough to be able to perceive them, right? To be able to even have the idea that, oh, this is something I could think, this is something I could do. There's so much space inside of ourselves, like all the way from complete and utter, I don't know, despair and hopelessness and fear and depression and complete lack of ability to be a creative participant in this world, you know, and to all the way to absolute genius and brilliance and massive capacity to affect and alter and create deliberately every aspect of your circumstances and events and certainly your perception of things, your mindset, your attitude, your perception and how you feel. There's such a vast range, and all of that seems to come from all of the mechanisms we have inside ourselves that we need to learn to utilize effectively and to understand. And so this is something that I like to do, to, you know, poke around and see how things feel and observe how these various mechanisms affect my life, the choices I make, the thoughts I think, how I feel, how that is reflected in my life. And maybe the words I use are kind of, I guess they sure are inspired by, I don't know, new age language or something, energy and stuff, but in the end, to me, this is all reality. This is not some concept somewhere far away, or, you know, but it's right here, right now. It's all of these kinds of different, I don't know, I don't even know what they are, musical notes. I don't even know how many different types of things there are inside of myself. There sure are mechanisms. There are something that resembles, you know, musical notes, like an instrument, like but more like a set of 100 instruments or something, or at least dozens of instruments, all very complex, or maybe, yeah, I don't even know how to put it. Any given subject I can think of is something where there's a certain melody playing, where there are certain chords, certain notes active in my, and you know, the new age word is to say vibration, which is, I mean, to me, less and less of a theoretical concept, but and I like to use the word because it seems to represent, we could say, the totality of all of these, well, you could say, strings that are playing inside of myself, right? Any subject that I can think of, I think of it, and I have a certain, like there's a whole orchestra playing. I mean, you could say maybe it's a sound, maybe it's, you know, static in the sense that it's not moving, but actually it's moving. It's like a symphony that's playing on any given subject. And I can affect that, I can direct that, and it reflects, it seems to reflect accurately the results that I'm getting in life. It seems to reflect that my outer world, my life, is a direct reflection of these symphonies that are being played on any given subject. It's like many, or maybe it's one orchestra which represents my focus. Yeah, focus is another thing. So there's you know, my vibration, which just means a symphony for any given subject, and maybe there's like a room or a whole stadium of orchestras, of musicians with their instruments sitting in everywhere in this stadium, and it goes up many stories high, and maybe it's even infinite because I am infinite in terms of the subjects I can think of. What I'm like an infinite container for these symphonies, we could say. And with my focus is something that activates a certain portion of this totality of these musicians sitting there with their instruments and grouped by topics, and topics cross-reference each other. So when one is active, one group is playing, then at least some of the instruments from other groups are also playing. They're harmonizing, they're co-vibrating, they're inspiring each other, or like sending impulses across, or they're, I don't know, quantum entangled, and they just play together. They are linked. They resonate. The strings resonate, vibrate so strongly that they activate instruments in other groupings located around the stadium. And my focus moves around and activates these. And my focus, or there's some facility that can change these, that can change the notes that are being played, like give the musicians different sheets of music to play, something that can rearrange them, something that can make individual instruments or whole groups louder and quieter. And I think this is mostly still the focus that activates and deactivates, makes them louder, more quiet, that can replace by refocusing. And what else is there? And it's possible that there's some level of arbitrariness in this. When I ask the question, what kinds of tools are there, or what, I don't know, mechanisms, or what are the things inside of myself, that there's probably no limit to how to the creative interaction, to how I can manipulate this symphony of orchestras. And it's more about what I'm used to, which how I I don't even have a good way of saying that. Yeah, but it seems that my creative ability, opportunity, freedom, that there's complete creative freedom in how I arrange these things. And it's maybe more about, because this world seems to be a lot about momentum, inertia, where things that have been that have accumulated a certain amount of focus, a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of activation, they will continue on this path and slowly lose momentum, or like with a defined, more or less fixed rate, they can acquire or release momentum. And they it's like they create fields around it, or a field is created, and by that I just mean something like gravity, right? They start exerting force on their surroundings. They start becoming more massive. They start accumulating mass and force and gravity and potential to affect other things. They attract, as gravity does, for example, other things. Or if we think of electromagnetic forces, they might repel or attract various counterparts, various elements that they are structured, we could say, to interact with. And so the more, energy, which just means focus, attention, or whatever this resource is that we are focusing, right? There's maybe this is, you could say, life force energy, and this just is also just a term that just means we have no freaking clue what this stuff is that even makes up, what makes us live, right? Obviously there seems to be some kind of energy, and we also have agency, right? We can choose, even if we can only choose what we're going to have, like even if there's only, even if we can only choose between two things that are right in front of us, and we can, decide to take a step left or take the food that's in the left plate and not the one in the right, and eat that, even if that's the best or the highest level where we can choose something, where we can be creative, where we have agency, but still we have agency. Where does that come from? What is that stuff? And we give all of these things, we try and grasp them, and we give them names. And one concept that makes sense to me is this life force energy. And that seems to be some of the stuff that, or like, what name are you going to give this stuff that we direct, this stuff that activates things, that puts this momentum into things, like into thoughts, into emotions, into these patterns that we weave that then create these personalities. What is that stuff, right? What is that? How do we call that? And that's just something that I often then refer to as energy, but and I guess it then carries certain connotations. But to me, this is just, this stuff that kind of makes us up. What is that, right? And we have to explore what that is, and try to understand that, catalog that, observe that, find better and better words, and in the end, hopefully tie it into science and physics, so that our physics will also understand what we are actually made of. Because right now it can only talk about stuff, matter, and I don't know, waves and particle interactions and wave interactions and stuff like that. But as soon as consciousness comes into play, like, physics does not know what this is. It can talk about our biology, our chemistry, our physical structure and layout of the organs and brain and nerves and everything. But what's the stuff that our agency is comprised of, for example? What's the stuff that creates momentum within ourselves, that creates this gravity and the what do you call the things we are used to, like, habits. This is a form of inertia, of momentum. What forms these things? What makes it so that if I practiced a certain personality yesterday, that today I'm much more likely to assume that again, right? It's like, where does this habit come from, and what are the mechanisms behind these things? What's this orchestra of, or this stadium of orchestras playing inside of myself on any given subject? What is that stuff, right? And we have some insight into it on a chemical and neurological and biological level, but our understanding is not very complete and not very satisfying at the moment. We actually have no clue. And so I'm very interested in what all of this is, and so I try to give it some words and try to observe and try to catalog and observe its interactions and its basic principles. So life force energy, right? What is our attention, our focus made of? What is the thing, the energy we give everything that we focus on? Because it's quite undeniable that there is something like that. It does something. Yeah. It's still early in the morning. And I think, at least for now, I am complete.